And over the weekend, I was talking to a lot of founder friends, and they were all asking themselves the same question. How's churn? Is churn okay in your industry? Is churn okay in your industry? It seems that churn seems to be the core topic du jour. Obviously, the market's tough, not as much net new is getting done. But for those of us in recurring revenue land, it's all about protecting the core base, except when you have churn. And you're probably seeing it in software companies, churn is off the charts. Now, I'm going to give advice as a 47-year-old three-time founder that I wish I had taken multiple times myself. But again, wisdom and experience teaches me this is the right move. And I'll tell it through a story. 10 years ago, I spoke at the very first 10X conference. I got an opportunity to meet Grant Cardone, hang out with him, and I learned a lot from him and his sales team. What I learned is that when times get tough, they don't actually add a tool, add a process, add a workflow, nothing. They actually take the existing workflow process tool stack and they cut by one. And they keep cutting and they keep cutting down to its essential elements. Some companies will call this first principles. Some now we're calling foundations. So when I look at, like everybody else, going through a churn issue, go through a churn issue, you first evaluate the root cause analysis and you start to discover these are self-inflicted wounds. We're doing it to ourselves because maybe we're growing too fast. We're hiring the right people, wrong bus, right people, need to update our workflows and processes, all these challenges. But the one thing that is for certain is many times we're breaking first principles. We're breaking foundations. So my advice to you, and I'll tell you what we did, we're breaking things down into the foundations of customer experience. So if you think of in a tech-enabled service-based business, the foundations as I see it are threefold. Number one is overt communication. Think of a service level agreement of 4 hours. During the day, a customer has a question. Can I get back to them within a half a day with an answer? And if it's an overnight question, can I get to them by the morning? So think of a 4-hour SLA and a 12-hour SLA. Those are very controllable factors. But now my first principle or my foundation principle number one, communication. Get really great and strong at that. So now the customer says to themselves, okay, I have questions. I'm being heard. Great. Next foundational principle, quality assurance. How do you judge that in a service-based business? Well, as an example, when you give them work, what is the number of revisions or what's called first draft acceptance rates? You want that to be like 95% or higher. Because if you're playing ping pong with first drafts or with revisions, that means that maybe you didn't hear them in the first go around. You didn't collect the right information up front around branding guidelines. You didn't truly understand their business. There's a myriad of challenges. But if you get that right, meaning you gave me something to do, I measured it twice, I cut it once, I handed it back to you. If I can nail that on the first attempt, now we're at that great second principle. You listen to me and you're handing me great quality work. Now, the final piece is the turnaround times. Can you communicate with me? Can you hand me great work? And can you do it on time? So think of SLAs of, are you going to get that done in 24 hours, 2 days, 1 week, whatever the SLAs are, that you can get the trains moving and they can stop on the stops on time. Now, those are three very simple, measurable foundations. Here's where I see companies go wrong is they're razzle and dazzle themselves through a customer experience. Break it down to some of these kind of in your business, these core elements. For me, communication, quality assurance, turnaround times. We created a dashboard by customer. Was there any break in one of those three elements this week against any of those customers? Highlighted in red if any of those break. Let's review them on our Monday calls. So now all of a sudden, if you can build that muscle of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of basic customer success, of the foundations, you don't need to add more tools. You don't need to add more process. You don't need to add more workflows. You just need to get really good in tough times is get great at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. because that's what's enduring. Then when you nail that, you go up Maslow's hierarchy of needs and you start rebuilding the tech stack, rebuilding the workflows and the processes. You add in more talent. Now all of a sudden you have a more scalable process because you're just building on the foundations that work. Now you're making the machine go better and go faster. So for all of you that are listening, you might be going through churn issues just like everybody else. My recommendation, get down to the first principles, the foundations of the 2, 3, 4 things that make for an incredible customer experience. Dive into those things. Make that pillar 100%. Then build from there. Hope all is well. Take care.